Good morning, students. I hope all of you are keeping fine. Yes, so today also we continue the same chapter, chapter 8, Demosthenes. And today we are going to study from page 73. All of you open your literature book, page 73. Demosthenes did not hide his feelings from Satyrus. So Demosthenes felt free and poured out all his sad feelings to Satyrus. A sailor with a foolish story will make them applaud. Applaud means clap, make them clap. While if I tell them tales of the glorious deeds of their own countrymen, they do not care, he said bitterly. Okay, so Demosthenes told that a sailor with a foolish story, when a sailor hears the foolish story, sometimes he may not understand, but he may clap. While if I tell him story about the great men, freedom fighters, he may not understand or clap. Okay, in that way he wants to say glorious deeds means great and heroic actions people those who do, okay, that is of their own countrymen, they do not care, he said bitterly, with a feeling that he had failed, could not succeed in his speech. So that way he expressed and cried bitterly. True, Demosthenes, answered Satyrus. Yes, you are true, said Satyrus, but I will tell you why it is so if you will recite to me some lines from one of our great poets. What you have said is correct, but will you recite to me some lines from one of our great poets? Satyrus asked him to recite a poem. Then Demosthenes recited some poems to him. He spoke the words correctly. Demosthenes spoke the words correctly, but his voice was dull. His voice was dull means he was not bold enough, not strong. His voice was not strong, not loud enough. There was awkwardness in the way he delivered the speech. There was awkwardness means the speech was delivered poorly and with difficulty because Demosthenes did not have the skill or confidence. Okay? Therefore, his speech was awkwardness. In his speech there was awkwardness. He delivered poorly. When Demosthenes finished, when he finished reciting poem, Satyrus repeated the lines. He repeated once again lines back to him. Demosthenes stood still with surprise when Demosthenes heard Satyrus' recitation of that poem. It was completely different. By hearing that, he stood still with surprise. He could not believe that they were the same lines. Demosthenes could not believe that those lines were from same poem. The actor's eyes flashed. His voice rose and fell and his body swayed as he spoke. So he used most of the parts of his body. He used eyes, his eyes flashed. His voice rose loud, sometimes very high, sometimes low tune, and his body swayed, movement of his body moved from one side to the other, and as he spoke, Demosthenes understood why his speeches did not interest the Athenians. Now he understood that why his speech did not interest the Athenians, did not interest the people. He realized that he must not only read or recite, he realized that he must not only read or recite them, but also act them. Not simply just reading and reciting, but also to act them. From that day on, Demosthenes began to work in a different way. From that day onwards, he realized his mistake, so he began to work in different way. He converted one of the cellars. Cellars means underground rooms used for storing things. So he converted one of the underground room of his house into a study room. He converted that storeroom into a study room. There he practiced undisturbed, without disturbance. He practiced. He often lived in his study room for 2 or 3 months at a stretch. Okay, he used to live there for 2 or 3 months at a stretch. People say he went to the seashore. Some people say that he used to go to the seashore and shouted his speech with pebbles in his mouth. He used to keep the pebbles in his mouth and he used to shout in the seashore. It made him struggle. When pebbles were there in his mouth, that made him struggle to bring out every sound. Okay, so when he spoke without the stones, the words came through loud and clear. Because in the beginning he practiced keeping the pebbles in his mouth and he shouted. And when he took out those stones and without the stones, when he spoke, the voice was loud and clear. He watched himself in the mirror as he spoke. As he recited his poems or speeches, he watched himself in the mirror as he spoke to improve his impressions, to improve his expressions, okay, to improve his face expressions, gestures. Gestures is movement of the hands or head while giving a speech, okay. So in order to see those things, expressions, gestures and actions. Okay, he watched himself in the mirror to improve his expressions, gestures and actions. He practiced speaking as he walked. While walking, he practiced or ran along the seashore. Okay, while walking on the way or when he ran along the seashore, he practiced his speech. He raised his voice, loud noise. Okay, he raised his voice high. Raised his voice so that he could be heard over the roaring waves. He raised his voice. He could make as loud as possible so that he could hear the roaring of the waves. He could hear the echo of his voice. He also practiced speaking as he ran up a hill. When he ran up a hill, he practiced. All these, okay, putting the pebbles in his mouth, practicing in front of the mirror, while walking on the way, while running along the seashore, while running up a hill, all these trained his breath. Trained his breath means to control his breath. So also voice, loud voice, strong voice and tone. Okay, all this it trained his breath, voice and tone. Demosthenes' speeches were now filled with drama and purpose. Now those days he struggled to give speech, but now, present time, his speeches were now filled with drama. It is used, put up as drama, and those speeches are full of purpose, message giving. he was no longer the boy. He was no longer the boy who was shy and spoke with a stammer. So at the end, he was no longer a shy boy, feeling shy. He was very brave. Okay? And spoke with once upon a time when he was small, he used to stammer. But now, no more stammering. Okay? He became very courageous, strong in giving speech. And he became famous, greatest orator. So my dear students, I kindly request you to read this chapter and you will practice the virtue of Demosthenes, that is, not to give up if you failed, but to have hope in life, practice hard, and you will be able to achieve your goal. That's all for today. Thank you. God bless you.